Wonders of the skies. From the moment man first took to the skies, we have been captivated. The sheer power of flight, the freedom, the boundless expanse above us. But within this realm of wonder, there are moments etched in history. Welcome to our countdown of the most shocking flights that amaze the world. On a frigid January morning, U.S. Airways Flight 1549 lifted off from LaGuardia Airport, destined for Charlotte, North Carolina. Minutes after takeoff, the unimaginable occurred. A flock of Canada geese collided with the aircraft, disabling both engines. Silence descended upon the cockpit as Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger and First Officer Jeffrey Skiles faced complete engine failure at a critically low altitude. With nerves of steel, Captain Sullenberger took control, informing air traffic control of their dire situation. The city that never sleeps watched with bated breath as the crippled aircraft, now just a glider, descended towards the unforgiving concrete jungle. He maneuvered the Airbus A320 over the George Washington Bridge, narrowly avoiding disaster. Then, in a feat of aviation prowess, he executed a flawless emergency landing on the icy waters of the Hudson River. All 155 souls on board survived. High above the Canadian prairies, Air Canada Flight 143 cruised at an altitude of 41,000 feet. It was July 23, 1983, and the Boeing 767 was en route from Montreal to Edmonton. Unbeknownst to the passengers and crew, a fuel miscalculation had occurred during a refueling stop. The aircraft had taken off with significantly less fuel than required for the journey. As the plane flew over Red Lake, Ontario, the unthinkable happened. The left engine sputtered and died due to fuel starvation. Moments later, the second engine failed, plunging the aircraft into an eerie silence. With remarkable composure, the pilots searched for a suitable landing spot. Their eyes fell upon a former Royal Canadian Air Force base in Gimli, Manitoba, now repurposed as a motorsports park. On June 24, 1982, British Airways Flight 9, a Boeing 747, encountered an invisible enemy above Java. Volcanic ash from Mount Galunggung engulfed the jet, choking all four engines. Captain Eric Moody announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. All four engines have stopped." The crew fought to restart the engines. At 12,000 feet, they succeeded. The aircraft, glowing with St. Elmo's fire, limped towards Jakarta. Chapter 4, Quantis Flight 32, A Story of Controlled Chaos. November 4, 2010. The skies above Indonesia would once again be the stage for a terrifying aviation drama. Quantis Flight 32, an Airbus A380 carrying 469 passengers and crew, was en route from Singapore to Sydney. Just minutes after takeoff, an uncontained engine failure sent shockwaves through the aircraft. Debris from the explosion ripped through the wing, severing fuel lines and damaging critical systems. The cockpit became a whirlwind of warning lights and alarms. Captain Richard de Crespigny, a veteran pilot with nerves of steel, took command. For almost 2 agonizing hours, the crew battled to keep the A380 airborne, struggling to understand the extent of the damage and maintain control. Finally, after a tense approach, Captain de Crespigny guided the crippled aircraft to an emergency landing back in Singapore. Chapter 5. The Ghost Flight. Helios Airways Flight 522, August 14, 2005. The sun beat down on the tarmac of Larnaca International Airport in Cyprus, as Helios Airways Flight 522, a Boeing 737, prepared for its journey to Prague with a stopover in Athens. Unbeknownst to the 115 passengers and 6 crew on board, a series of tragic errors had set in motion a chain of events that would lead to unimaginable horror. During pre-flight checks, a pressurization switch was mistakenly set to manual instead of auto. As the 737 climbed into the clear blue sky, the cabin pressure failed to adjust properly. The pilots, starved of oxygen, became incapacitated, leaving the aircraft flying on autopilot towards its doom. Greek F-16 fighter jets were scrambled to intercept the unresponsive aircraft. A flight attendant identified as Andreas Prodromou, who had some piloting experience, attempted to regain control of the aircraft, but tragically, it was too late. Chapter 6. United, 232. Triumph over Tragedy in Sioux City. July 19, 1989. United Airlines Flight 232, a DC-10 carrying 296 souls, was en route from Denver to Chicago on a routine flight. As the trijet soared over Iowa, disaster struck. A catastrophic failure of the tail engine caused an uncontained engine explosion, sending shrapnel through the tail section. The explosion severed all 3 hydraulic systems, leaving the aircraft without any control surfaces. Captain Al Haynes, a seasoned pilot with over 30,000 hours of flight experience, faced an unprecedented situation. For 44 agonizing minutes, they fought to control the crippled DC-10 using asymmetrical engine thrust to steer. Their heroic efforts allowed them to avoid a catastrophic stall and guide the plane towards Sioux Gateway Airport in Sioux City, Iowa. Chapter 7. Hijacked over the Indian Ocean. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961, November 23, 1996. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961, a Boeing 767 carrying 175 passengers and crew, took off from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, bound for Nairobi, Kenya. Shortly after takeoff, 3 Ethiopian men hijacked the aircraft, armed with a fake bomb and an axe. Their motives were unclear, their demands fueled by desperation and a desire for political asylum. The hijackers forced Captain Loyal Abate to change course, first towards Nairobi, then towards the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean. Fuel dwindled as the hijackers, their demands unmet, became increasingly agitated. Captain Abate, in a desperate attempt to reason with them, explained that they were running out of fuel and pleaded for their cooperation. As the 767 approached the Comoros Islands, its fuel tanks nearly dry, Captain Abate made one final desperate plea. Chapter 8. Air France 447, Mystery in the Atlantic Depths, June 1, 2009. Air France Flight 447, an Airbus A330 carrying 228 passengers and crew, departed from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, destined for Paris, France. The flight was routine, the skies clear, but fate had other plans for those on board. As the A330 cruised through the night sky over the Atlantic Ocean, tragedy struck with terrifying speed. The aircraft encountered a severe thunderstorm, its sleek fuselage buffeted by powerful updrafts and downdrafts. The pilots, struggling to maintain control amidst the turbulence, made a series of fateful decisions. They inadvertently caused the aircraft to stall, sending it plummeting from the sky at an alarming rate. For 4 agonizing minutes, the A330 plunged towards the ocean, its systems malfunctioning, its descent unstoppable. Air France Flight 447 vanished into the depths of the Atlantic, taking with it the lives of all on board. Chapter 9. Japan. Airlines 123, A Race Against Time. August 12, 1985. Japan Airlines Flight 123, a Boeing 747 carrying 524 passengers and crew, took off from Tokyo's Haneda Airport, bound for Osaka. Just 12 minutes after takeoff, a catastrophic failure of the aircraft's rear pressure bulkhead ripped a gaping hole in the fuselage. The sudden decompression blew out a large portion of the vertical stabilizer, crippling the 747's ability to maintain altitude and control. The pilots, Captain Masami Takahama and First Officer Yutaka Sasaki, fought valiantly to control the stricken aircraft, which was now oscillating wildly, its altitude fluctuating erratically. For 32 agonizing minutes, they battled to keep the 747 airborne, their efforts hampered by the severe damage and the loss of hydraulic pressure. Despite their heroic efforts, the crippled 747, now known as the Jumbo Crane due to its erratic flight path, crashed into Mount Takamagahara, 62 miles from Tokyo. Chapter 10. PanAm Flight 73, Courage Under Fire. September 5, 1986. PanAm Flight 73, a Boeing 747, sat on the tarmac in Karachi, Pakistan. 4 armed terrorists stormed the aircraft, demanding the release of Palestinian prisoners. Fear and uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Nirja Banot, a flight attendant, displayed extraordinary courage. She became a beacon of hope, calming passengers and alerting the crew. When the power failed, the terrorists opened fire. Chapter 11. Above the clouds, humanity endures. These stories, each more harrowing than the last, remind us that the skies, for all their beauty and allure, can be an unforgiving environment. They are reminders of the fragility of life and the ever-present potential for disaster that lurks above the clouds. But these incredible stories remind us of the bravery and skill of pilots and crew members who face unimaginable challenges in the skies. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more amazing stories.